think it was today.
Jake. Do me a favor. My center desk drawer has the call button thing. I'm going to swap that for that. Make it fast because I start in 3.
Those other songs stuck in my head. Heart of Mine. I just posted on Facebook. You know that song? It's a really beautiful song.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to put it in this service, but do a different service. Rosalie Boxed. Rosalie.
I know Rosalie.
She doesn't go by that much.
Yeah.
Rosalie Will.
Jason was boxed.
She recorded it years ago with Alan Driskin and Dan Nichols and Josh Nelson. It's written by a colleague of mine. It's really lovely.
Where is this Love on a Knife thing? Where's that?
That's in replacement of the
Oh, it's every half. Right.
I can announce it.
No, I'll do it. I forgot where it went. Did you look at the song sheet?
No.
Music sheet?
No.
There's one out there.
Oh. No, over there. Why are there 2 buttons on this?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Do you know this guy, that composer?
I do.
He's a nice guy. He's a little funny looking, but he's a nice guy.
Has a special song?
No,
No? Oh. I think I found it.
it's not hard.
Here's the other sheets.
The other sheet, this one you would find, but this one you would find. It has the words
I don't really need the words, but
out there. Go grab one and give them to Mom. And for yourself.
I don't need that.
Are we ready?
This is going to revolutionize my life here.
What?
This, amazing.
I'm jealous.
It's amazing. It's like at the angle that I need it.
I'm jealous.
Well, yours is ordered.
Jealous, I tell
It
you.
didn't take it long to come here.
I was going to ask you how long did it take?
It was supposed to take like 2 weeks, and it took maybe a week and a half. I just didn't know when I ordered the color. Probably kind of darker, but I got yours the same one that was look funny. But if it's here, you can't even see it.
Shabbat Shalom. On Zoom, thumbs up if you can hear us and see us. Can you see us? Yes? And you can hear us. Bob, you can see and hear us? And Elizabeth, you can see and hear us? All right, so Jennifer, I have no idea how to answer your question on Zoom about sound and video. I'm guessing it's on your end because everybody else seems to be able to see it. But I have no idea if that's true, so I apologize. At any rate, Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see everyone. It's awfully good to be home again. Jennifer can now hear but not see. Jennifer, I think it's on you because I think the camera things are working. So I don't know what to tell you, but we begin as we do each Shabbat with music.
with a smile as well. Smile in our voice, smile in our hearts. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la ya la la ya la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la ya la.
We turn now to page 11 and join together in Do Di Li. Do Di Li is a wonderful love song. It's often sung at weddings. And Shabbat, in tradition, actually, is a love story. Shabbat is a time when the Sabbath bride comes, and we welcome the Sabbath bride. And so there's this wonderful love theme that goes all the way throughout Shabbat liturgy. And tonight is actually a special Shabbat that encompasses this love idea. Today is Tu B'Av, which is on the Hebrew calendar. This is the date. It's sort of the Jewish version of Valentine's Day. This is a celebration of love. So if you love the person next to you, turn to them and tell them that. And if you don't love the person next to you, fake it. In the Zoom boxes, turn to the person next to you in the box and tell them you love them. Lynn and Pat, get a room.
Do di li vanilo harore bashoshani. Do di li. Let's try that one more time. Do di li vanilo harore bashoshani. Do di li izozola milhamidbar izozola milhamidbar. Do Ekuteret mor levona dodili. Dodili vanilo harore bashoshani.
the theme of love. The theme of love in Shabbat continues in Lecha Dodi, where we welcome the Sabbath bride, and it actually continues a little further. The Torah reading this Shabbat is the second parsha in the book of Deuteronomy, and it includes V'ahavta, which is the prayer that we all say. We'll say it in a little bit, actually. Actually, we're doing a slightly different version that celebrates love. But V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, thou shalt love the Lord your God. So this love theme keeps playing through. So as we turn now to page 20, to Lecha Dodi, you'll see that we have this wonderful love poem. If you haven't had a chance, take a look at the English of the verses as we're singing through and read through them. They're wonderful, wonderful love poetry and wonderful to read. It actually works beautifully to read it antiphonally back and forth to somebody. Look at it, and for now, we join together in singing Lecha Dodi.
Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, lekabla, lecha Dodi. Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, lekabla. Na'amor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamichad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'litila lecha Dodi. Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, lekabla. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'neilcha, hi mekor haberacha, meirosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi. Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, lekabla, hitoreri, kiva orech uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai alai nigla. Lecha Dodi. Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, lekabla. Bohui v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'besola, tochem munei am sekula. Bohui chala, lecha Dodi. Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, lekabla.
We turn ahead in our prayer books now as we continue with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 26.
Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alamal divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael, ba'agala, uv'izman kari v'imeru.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabba Barach, Le'alam Ulami Almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Ve'yishtabach, V'pa'ar V'tromam V'naseh, Ve'yit Hadar Ve'yitale, Ve'yitalal Shemei Dekucha, Ve'richu, Le'ela Min Kol Birchata, Ve'shirata, Tush Bechata, Ve'lechemata, Damiran Be'alma, Ve'yimeru, Amen.
We invite everyone to rise in body or spirit.
Am I awake?
Yes.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you hear my voice? Do you understand? Am I awake? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. La 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 la, la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la.
We continue together in the middle of page 30. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And we turn ahead now to page 32 and join together in the middle of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
This next song, you may be seated, is an English version of the Ahavta that we are celebrating this weekend in the Torah portion. You'll find it on your song sheet on the Love Adonai side, and it's a very upbeat.
Raise your hand if you didn't get a song sheet. Jacob, can you run out and grab about a half a dozen? You didn't see any more? Okay, so then can we ask people to share them a little bit? Jake, can you share with Mom? You hand yours off to Ms. Rubinson?
All right, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy piece. Here we go. It's like this. Love, Adonai, your God. Love, Adonai, your God. Love, Adonai, your God. Love, Adonai, your God. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Take these words that I command this day, and keep them in your heart. Take these words that I command this day, and keep them in your heart. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Write them on the doorpost of your house. Write them on the doorpost of your house. And on your gate. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God. Love, Adonai, God.
On page 39, we continue together in the middle of the page. Please join with me. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Okay, I am לפני משה ומרים, זה נהיה Eli, Anu ve'hamelu, Adonai Hilo, Le'olam va'ed, Adonai Hilo, Le'olam va'ed. Yalai, yalai, la, 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 yalai, la, 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 yalai, la, 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 yalai, la, 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 yalai, la, la, yalai, la, la, la.
Over the past number of days, we have watched all sorts of fascinating events occurring in our nation. I would love to tell you that love has been at the heart of those events. I really would love to tell you that. But that is not at the heart of it. And when we are faced with these challenges, when we're faced with these kinds of issues, we actually have a choice to make. And the question is, how are we going to respond? Are we going to respond in the same way, or are we going to respond in another way? Are we going to elevate, or are we going to stay where things are? My gut instinct initially isn't to elevate. I suppose it's the time of year when I should start confessing all of my sins. We're getting close to the high holidays. My initial reaction isn't to try and take the high road, but one of the things I must remind myself is that we have to. And that, to borrow a phrase, we have to love the sinner and hate the sin. And so, even in watching the events of this week and the lies and the compounding of the lies and the repetition of the lies, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later, our response has to be from someplace higher. It has to be from a place of love. If we can't look out towards each other, towards our neighbors, towards those we know and those we don't know, towards those we trust and those we fear, if we can't find a way to look at them with love, then we're not elevating the world. And so the words of this next prayer call to me personally to say, Danny boy, how you doing? Are you letting love win, or are you allowing yourself to stay wherever the world sends you? And each week as I read them, I hear them as a clarion call to say to me, let love win, let love supersede, let love be the guiding force. All of us need more love in our lives, not less. Our nation needs more love, not less. And so we join together in prayer. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporeh sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
And understanding among us, let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Hashivenu Leshalom. Ha'alidenu
שלומך. השכיבנו, אדוני אלוהינו, השכיבנו לשלום. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. We turn to these words which remind us of the importance of this day, Vishamru, page 44. Shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ויהיו בין בני ישראל אותי על עולם. ששת ימים אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת שבת וינף השבת, שבת וינף.
We invite everyone to rise in body or spirit as we turn the page to 46 and join together in the evening tefillah.
Adonai smatai tiftach, Adonai smatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai smatai tiftach, Adonai smatai tiftach, ufi yagid
תהילתך לפי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות מאימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה כל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently now through page 63, including both the prayers of our hearts and the prayers of the prayer book. You're invited to be seated at your own pace.
Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Asim Shalom Rabbi Yisrael Asim Shim Leolam Tasim Leolam.
We turn ahead in our prayer books now to the Mishaberach prayer for healing, found on page 253. As a congregation, we especially pray this Shabbat evening for Alan Snyder, Alex Botkin, Susan Horn, Devorah Batfe, Robin Neft, Barry Friedlander, Joey Don Gillespie, Tom Evans, and Elaine Leskold. If there are other names to mention, I invite you to mention them in the chat box if you're on Zoom, and as our eyes meet in the sanctuary, to say those names aloud. We join in prayer for all of them, for their loved ones and caregivers. Please join us with the Mishaberach prayer, page 253.
Mikol Abraha the source of strength, blessed in the ones before us, help us find courage, live our lives blessing, let us say those in need of healing, refuah shlema, love and body, love spirit, and let us say Amen.
We add to the names mentioned earlier, Razak Lawal and Ella Gluckman Lawal. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rofeh hacholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, healer of the sick. And now a few moments for good things, birthdays, anniversaries. Anybody have anyone visiting from out of town that they'd like to share? Got to be something good going on. Who's got something good? You got something good over there? We'll get you over here. You got something good?
My son and daughter-in-law, Russ and Kayla Miller, are expecting their second boy on October 21st.
Very nice. Mazel tov.
Toby Chapman. My granddaughter is finally taking time off from work and is traveling to California, where she'll meet with her sister and uncle and then take a trip down US 1.
Nice. Is your granddaughter doing the same thing?
I think she is.
Good.
I bought a guitar.
Cantor, you heard that, right? Who else has something good to share? Wait. You got to say that louder. And Italian.
We I can't do it in Italian. We just booked a trip to Italy for 3 weeks, starting in the end of September.
So will you do a cooking demonstration for us when you get back?
I would love to, but probably not.
I'm trying.
Hello, George.
Somebody over there has something to
from-
share?
George Small from Ann Arbor. My daughter I'm visiting is sick but tested negative for COVID.
My daughter submitted her master's project and is starting student teaching.
Yay, Sam. But how come your daughter didn't introduce and say, welcome to my mom who's in from out of town? Lizzie, what you got? Is somebody coming home tomorrow? Actually, on Sunday. Your brother's coming home from camp on Sunday. Yeah. Who else has something good to share? On Zoom, we got anything good to share online? Let's see what we got. On Zoom, one person told us that they did well with their esophageal ablation last week, and their grandson, Joanna and Michael Butler's grandson, took his first steps this last week. Lynn and Pat Fields note that Pat can finally write his name for the first time in 15 years. Brain surgery worked. Question is Pat following directions any more than he ever did before? Didn't work that well.
No.
There's always hope. All right, I think after on that note, we got to start singing.
Oh, say shalom, bimroma. Oh, say shalom. Hallelujah, praise Amen. Oh, say shalom, bimroma. Oh, say shalom. Hallelujah, praise Israel. Amen. We say shalom, Lord. We are say shalom. Hallelujah, Alto Israel. Amen. Amen. Oh, say shalom, Lord. We are say shalom.
I should note here that Elizabeth Colera added her good news that Rachel comes home from camp this Sunday, and then we all leave to the beach on Wednesday. I don't know if all means all of the Coleras or all of us, but I'm happy to go to the beach on Wednesday. Susan, you want to join me? Where is the closest beach to Pittsburgh? The beach. Shabbat shalom, everybody. It's good to be home and it's good to celebrate with all of you. So what do we do when a leader lies and then repeats the lie and then repeats the lie again and again and again? What do we do as a society? What do we do with that person? What do we do with our children? How do we live with public lying by one who is in a position of authority? For too long, we've been living with this question. For too long, we've been living with the results of having to ask this question. The Torah portion, this Shabbat, as I mentioned a few moments ago, actually has something to teach us here. I wish it had something to teach us more palatable, actually. I wish I could look at this and say, I agree with what the Torah is saying, or I agree with what the sages are saying. But this is one of those instances where our current world informs us about a passage or two in Torah, and the results aren't quite what we want, but we are clearer with what we need to do. So let me explain. We're at Ve'et Hanan, which is the second Torah portion in Deuteronomy, and we're at the part of the Torah where we're about to hear the Ten Commandments a second time, and we're about to hear the Shema and V'ahavta. Ve'et Hanan is a pretty significant Torah portion. It's almost the greatest hits parsha of the whole Torah portion. It has all, the Ten Commandments are a pretty big deal. To have that and the Shema in the same portion, it was kind of like the Billy Joel concert last night, where it had all the big hits, all the songs that we wanted to hear. But before we get to that part, Moses says first in chapter 3 at verse 26, and then again in chapter 4, verse 5 or 6, I have it written down here. Verse 21 in chapter 4. Moses says, I'm not going into the promised land, and it's your fault. It's because of how you, the Israelites, behaved. It's a wonderful image. It's just not true. Moses wasn't denied entrance into the promised land because of how the Israelites behaved. Moses was denied entrance because of how he behaved. It was Moses who lacked faith. It was Moses who, when God said to get water, turn to the rock and speak to the rock, and water will come forth. And instead, Moses took his staff and hit the rock, and water came forth. It was Moses who had a lack of faith. It was Moses who couldn't follow the direction. It was Moses who got into trouble himself. And yet here we are twice in this Torah portion where Moses lies about it and then repeats the lie. It's not my fault, it's your fault. Those of us who have lived through the national era of the last 5 years, 6 years, this should sound too familiar. It's not me who's done anything wrong, it's you. I'm not the liar, you're the liar. I'm not the one saying fake news, fake facts. You're the one with the fake news and the fake facts. Right? We've lived through this. So what do our sages do? Our sages who are brilliant, right? Who wrestle with these words, who spend hours, days wrestling through this. How did they make sense of this? Well, unfortunately, they are the ancient equivalent of Trump's hordes of people. They are just this side of Fox News. They do backflips. Ibn Ezra does backflips to make Moses sound like he's doing the right thing, like he's telling the truth. Rashi does everything he can to clear Moses' name. Nachmanides does everything he can to try and make sense of this whole thing. So how do they do it? Rashi comes along and says, it wasn't so much of the Israelites saying, it was their behavior that caused the problem. If they weren't whining about water in the first place, Moses wouldn't have needed to do this. Therefore, it's the Israelites' fault. You and I can read through that and see through the baloney, right? We know perfectly well that's not the case. But Rashi's trying to preserve the great one as he sees Moses. Rashi is trying to say Moses couldn't possibly be wrong. And so I've got to find an answer here. Ibn Ezra comes along and says, you've got this all wrong. Moses doesn't do anything bad. Moses is just trying to set a good example for us. Moses is trying to teach us, to warn us. Moses is a good leader. He's exactly what we want. He's the best leader we've ever had. Does this sound familiar? Anybody heard anything like that over the last few years? Nachmanides comes along and says, Moses is an example. Moses is taking heat for our mistakes. If I didn't know it was in our own tradition, I might even suggest that what Nachmanides is arguing is the Christian theology, that Jesus died for our sins. Because that's the case they're making for Moses. Moses is suffering on account of us. But we as Jews know that that can't possibly hold water for us. That line of reasoning is completely foreign to us. That's Christian thought, and it's fine for Christians to believe that, but that's not ours. So what do? Here we have this text where Moses lies not once but twice. We have the sages who are supposed to elucidate, who are supposed to enlighten us, who are supposed to bring meaning to the text for us. and all they're doing is being apologists. So what are we left with? Who are we going to turn to? Who's going to help us guide? The answer is nobody except ourselves. That we Jews have a responsibility, or as my son Zach used to like to say when he was little, we have a sponsibility. We have a responsibility to hold true to the facts as they are, to own the facts as they are, to stand up and to deal with the situation as it is, not as we prefer it to be. It means that we have to look up, and when we see Moses lying, we've got to call him on it. And when the text indicates that Moses is lying, we've got to shout it out to the text and say, we disagree with what's going on in the Torah here. This is wrong. Moses is doing something wrong. See? Moses is misbehaving. We can't follow this. Moses is not the example for us. That's what we need to do. We need to be willing to argue with the text, to argue with the sages, the great commentators who have all of these wonderful images. We have to argue with them. We have to wrestle with them. This is why we need to study as Jews. This is why Torah study and interaction and human interaction is so central to us. If all we do is read the text, we miss the truth. We need each other. We need each other to hold ourselves accountable, to hold each other accountable, and to find the truth that we all seek, that we all desire. So responsibility, a sense of ethics, a sense of values. Moses, most of the time, lives by a high personal ethic. Most of the time, Moses argues correctly. But if you look at Moses, the figure, he is a flawed man. This is a man who killed somebody. This is a man who had difficulties with all sorts of other people he encountered. To say that he is an ideal leader is a stretch beyond stretches. Moses might have been the best leader we had, but he was not perfect. And we've got to acknowledge that Moses was an imperfect leader. Moses was a human leader. We were at Mount Rushmore about 10 days ago, and we stood looking out at the mountain at the carvings of the presidents, and we were having a conversation about whether the faces were bigger or smaller than what we had imagined them to be. And then we had a conversation about, well, how did those 4 presidents get there? And what did they do? And the answer is that they got there, for each of them, for acts they did, but that it wasn't hard to find flaws in each of the 4 of them. Washington, after all, had slave issues, so did Jefferson. Jefferson had personal behavior issues, to put it mildly. Lincoln might have been the saint among them, but Lincoln too had his difficulties. Theodore Roosevelt had a temper like you've never seen. But he did more to protect the environment, and that's how his face got there. In each of those 4 faces, there is stepping into a role and grasping it, but there is also a recognition of their own humanity, their own fallibility. And even listening to the guides talk about all the good things they did, but they also talked about how each of them were flawed. And it made me think to myself, there's no way another face is ever going to be added here, because we'll never agree on who should be added, which is probably okay, the more I think about it. But it is looking at our leaders and seeing their flaws. It is recognizing their humanity. It is seeing that though they stood up and led, they were imperfect. And it means when they lie or when they did something wrong, to call them on it, to own it. And so when we talk about Thomas Jefferson, we have to talk about Sally Hemings. We must. When we talk about Washington, we have to talk about his slaves. We must, even though he did good things, even though he's the father of our country. With Moses, our great leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our rabbi, Moses, our teacher, we can't afford to see him only as good. The Torah portion this Shabbat, if nothing else, reminds us that the most loving thing we can do is to honor him as he was, flawed and all. And so what do we do with a lying leader? We acknowledge just that he was a leader, that he lied, and that he dealt with the consequences. And this is how we move forward. It is by being mature adults and saying, we're going to recognize the flaws. We're still going to honor those moments of greatness, but we're not going to elevate beyond the humanity that each of us carries. So yes, Moses lies consistently. And yes, the sages back Moses up and try to paint him into a better place. But when you and I, equals to Moses and equals to the sages in our humanity, when we sit down and wrestle through the text, what do we find? We find that our voices are just as important. We find that our actions are just as important. We find that our wrestling with the text is just as important. So yes, just as they are flawed, we are flawed. Just as they've made mistakes, we will continue to make mistakes. Just as they did good things and even reached levels of greatness, so too can all of us do good and reach levels of greatness. But beyond what they could do, we can develop a sense of humility, a sense of humanity, a sense that says, I am flawed, but I am holy. This is the answer. This is how we look at one who lies. This is how we look at one who covers for the liar. They are flawed. Their flaws need to be known, but it doesn't detract from their innate holiness as a human being. It detracts from their behavior. It might even detract from their fitness to serve in a particular role. God help us. But it doesn't detract from their basic holiness. This is the Jewish view. This is how we look at that piece of Torah and this world in which we live and figure out a way to make sense of it all. So I don't know what kind of lies are coming, other than to say I know more are coming. And I don't know what kind of cover-ups are coming, except to say there are going to be more. But I do know this, each of us can dig deep within ourselves and find a well of love for the other and love for God and love for the self that says, we're going to own those flaws, we're going to acknowledge them and recognize them, and then we're going to keep living and keep trying to improve. When we do that, our world gets better, it gets sweeter, and the lying, hopefully, gets recognized, compartmentalized, and perhaps even overcome. Shabbat Shalom. We have a number of announcements tonight. First, I want to thank Elliot Oshry for being our greeter this evening. Our musical program is, as always, made possible with generous support by an anonymous donor. The Oneg tonight is sponsored by Watts. Tomorrow morning, we will have Torah study at 8:30 and then Shabbat morning services at 9:15. On Tuesday, we have two things going on. Brotherhood's lunch at Big Jim's in the Run at 12 noon. RSVP to Philip Baumfeld if you're planning to go. And then Tuesday evening is the Jewish Heritage Night at the Pirates. If you haven't gotten your Temple Sinai hat, see Drew afterwards in the Oneg or stop by the Temple office on Monday and you can pick one up, or on Tuesday. They are good hats. I saw one today and they are handsome and good looking and they'll be great for us to wear to the game. If you'd like to participate in the choir, is there still time to join for the national anthem? Yes, there is a Sunday rehearsal at what time?
Mic on. Yes, our final rehearsal, certainly our second and final rehearsal, is Sunday at 2:30 right here. So if you are going to do that, actually let me know, because we've submitted our numbers to the Pirates, so we'll have to do some wiggle room, but let me know. All right.
On Wednesday, Parshat HaShavua is at 12 noon. We're back in business. At 1:15, the Temple Sinai book group is meeting in the Rogaliner, reading Meir Shalev's book, The Blue Mountain. And in the evening, meditation with Rhonda Rosen at 6 p.m. will be online. Next Friday evening, the 19th, Tat Shabbat, begins at 5 o'clock with snacks and schmooze and a service, and then dinner and crafts and all sorts of fun. And then our regular Shabbat service will begin at 7 o'clock. On the 28th, We are celebrating our temple-wide picnic, which is the conclusion of our 75th anniversary year. It will be in Monroeville. Details and registration are available on our website. There's also a big sign out in the lobby, or you can see Lynn Rubinson, the woman in yellow over here, and she can give you all of the details. Promises to be lots of fun, a great way to end the summer and to begin the new year. Beginning the new year means high holidays are coming. We are about 6 weeks away, give or take. Maybe a little bit more, 7 weeks. So the time is coming soon. That means people like rabbis and cantors are suddenly looking in the mirror and saying, oh dear Lord, what are we doing? But we will be ready and we're excited. Actually, Cantor Reinwald and I began today to go through the services, and so far we've got one service ready. So we're on our way.
If you say so.
We're on our way.
Right.
We're on our way. For now, we turn back to our service, back to our prayer book, to page 282. We invite everyone to rise in body or spirit as we join together in Aleinu L'Shabeach.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו בהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו הוא אחד.
Please be seated. As we recall those whose yortzeit occurs in the coming days, I invite you to rise as you hear the name of your loved one mentioned aloud. As a congregation, we recall Nancy Alter, Sandra Blackson, Annabelle Boas, Alice Brandeis, Herbert Brandeis, Anna Brodsky, Pete Buncher, Jack Burton, Rose Kolker, Sadie Dobkin, Michael Duggins, Charles Aaronworth, Julian Alligator, Morris Essman, Kay Farb, William Fishback, Rose Barenfield Fishbein, Marvin Friedenberg, Elise Gaston, Linda Goldberg, Rachel Goldberg, David Golub, David Green, Jean Hamburg, John R. Hanlon Sr., Lauren Hirsch, Milton Judd, William Kaplan, Adam LaBelle, Bertha Landau, Myron Samuel Landis, Sarah Lipsick, Libby Mann, Sophie Masloff, Leon Mendelson, Morris Oshry, Dorothy Raffson, Harvey Roth, Harold Rittenberg, Roy Schanfarber, Arnold Schillett, Randy Susan Silverman, Howard Singer, Samuel Pat Solomon, Amalia Steinbeck, Kyle Steiner, Leonard Bluey Trachtenberg, Anthony Trimble, Daniel Weiner, Sam Weitz, Raheel Zamuel. And to those names, we add the names of those taken from us only in recent days: Stanislav Boyko, Bernard Lefkowitz, and Roz Eskowitz. We as a congregation rise now and join together in the words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma tivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam l'mei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudashah b'richu. Le'elam mikol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God grant comfort to all the bereaved among us. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.
We conclude this evening with singing of a special song for love found on the back of the song sheet, written by 4 very famous Brits.
Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy. There's nothing you can make that can't be made. No one you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love, love is all you need. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love, love is all you need. Nothing you know that isn't known. Nothing you can see that isn't sure. No one you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It's easy. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love, love is all you need. All you need is love. Once again now. All you need is love. Everybody. All you need is love. Love, love is all you need. Love is all you need. Love is all you need. Love is all you need.
We join together for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaro lemaaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom tehila lemikrai kodesh zecher yitziat Mitzrayim. Ki banu v'charta ve'otanu kidasha mikol hamim b'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'beratzon inchabtzanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
I wonder how often the Beatles finished a session with the Kiddush. Please join me for the Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.